Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to take a look at some of the things you need to do to prepare your Excel spreadsheet before uploading it into SpreadsheetWEB and create a web application. The workbook preparation mainly involves restructuring your workbook and assigning name ranges to inputs, outputs, as well as fields that you might want to capture in the database. Excel is a desktop tool and was built with this basic concept in mind. It's mainly used by one person on a desktop environment. Web applications, on the other hand, run on web browsers and typically must be accessible to multiple users. This means that your design criteria will have to conform some of the standards imposed by web browsers and end-user screen properties. For example, Excel can work seamlessly with large horizontal tables that span over dozens of columns. This works well on a desktop software, but this is not a desirable way to present information on the web because doing so will force your users to do a lot of side scrolling on that page. This is a behavior that is not commonly seen in web pages. For best results, we recommend splitting large tables into smaller sections and contents into multiple pages in your web application for a better user experience. Note that the calculations across your entire workbook will be executed every time the calculations run on the web application, regardless of where in your spreadsheet formulas or data may be located. Next, you need to make sure that your workbook contains name ranges for any cell or range you want to include in your web application. SpreadsheetWEB uses name ranges to tie workbook cells to web interface controls. Therefore, you need to have a name range for a specific cell or table to be able to use it in the web application. You don't need any name ranges for formulas or data that is being used by the formulas, as this information will be detected by the system automatically. Let's take an example. Here I have an order entry workbook which I want to convert into a web application. Here we have various input types like text boxes for customer details, a date field for date selection, a drop-down for item selection, and an order entry table. Most inputs like text boxes and calendar inputs must have a name range in the cell where you want to capture them. For example, for customer name, we have the name range customer. Inputs like drop-downs and radio buttons that require a list of selections must have two name ranges. One for the cell where the input will be placed, and one list name range where the control options will be coming from. In this example, cell B11 corresponds to an item selection and has a drop-down style menu. For this, we assign a name range to this cell, as well as the list this data is coming from, products. Table controls like input and output grids, as well as charts and maps, require a two-dimensional table name range. In our case, we're going to call this grid orders. Note that you can also include table headers in the name range selection to pull this information into your web application. Another piece of the system that you have to consider is the database module. If you want to capture any data in your web applications, you're going to need to define the database tables for your applications later. Database fields can be selected from name ranges in your workbook, and the names assigned to each field is what you're going to see in the database module. Note that SpreadsheetWEB doesn't support macros in web applications, and any macros in your workbook will be ignored by the system. Save your file when you're done, and now you're ready to upload your file.